Hey everyone. Before we begin, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because today's story will touch your heart in ways you didn't expect. It's a story about kindness, fate, and a twist that will leave you speechless till the very end. So stay with me, because you won't believe who that old woman really was. It was a chilly morning in a small-town cafe, the kind where the scent of freshly brewed coffee greets you before the door even opens. The bell above the door jingled softly as the same frail old woman entered, clutching a worn-out brown handbag. Her clothes were simple, a faded gray coat, a knitted scarf, and shoes that had clearly seen better days. She walked with effort, but her eyes held warmth, the kind that made you pause and smile back without meaning to. Behind the counter was Lena, a 25-year-old waitress who worked the morning shift. She wasn't just polite, she was genuinely kind. Every morning, she saved the same corner table for the old woman, poured her a cup of tea just the way she liked, with honey instead of sugar, and greeted her like an old friend. "Good morning, Mrs. Edna," Lena would say cheerfully, even though she had never been told the woman's real name. "Good morning, dear," the woman would reply softly. "You always remember my tea." Not many people remember the little things anymore. Lena smiled, though behind her smile was exhaustion. Her life wasn't easy, juggling 2 jobs, trying to pay for her younger brother's college fees after their parents passed away in a car accident. Still, she never complained. Somehow, seeing the old woman each morning gave her peace. One morning, when the cafe was unusually empty, Lena noticed the old woman's hands shaking as she tried to pour her tea. Without hesitation, Lena came over, steadying her hands and wrapping them gently around the warm cup. "Are you okay, ma'am?" The woman nodded faintly. "Just tired, dear. It's been a long life." That day, Lena sat with her during her break, something she rarely did. They talked, about the world, about love, about regrets. The old woman listened as Lena shared her struggles, working nights at a diner, saving every penny, missing her brother's college events because of double shifts. The old woman's eyes softened with something deeper than pity, something like understanding. "You remind me of someone," she whispered. "Someone I once lost because I didn't show enough gratitude." Lena smiled, brushing it off. "You don't owe anyone anything, ma'am. Sometimes kindness doesn't need repayment." But the old woman looked down at her trembling hands and murmured, "Sometimes, it must be repaid, before it's too late." Days passed, and Lena noticed the woman growing weaker. She started bringing her breakfast on the house, scrambled eggs, toast, and sometimes a muffin wrapped for later. When her boss scolded her for giving out free food, Lena quietly paid for it herself, taking it from her already thin paycheck. One rainy morning, the old woman didn't come. For the first time in months, her corner table was empty. Lena felt uneasy all day, glancing at the door every few minutes, hoping to hear that familiar jingle. But it never came. By the 3rd day, she had almost convinced herself that maybe the woman had gone to visit family. But deep down, a quiet sadness sat heavy in her chest. She missed her. Then, a week later, the cafe's parking lot filled with 3 black SUVs. 4 men in suits stepped out, tall, serious, with earpieces glinting in the morning sun. The entire cafe froze. Moments later, a woman in a sharp gray skirt and heels entered, holding a briefcase. She looked around and asked firmly, "Is there a Miss Lena Carter here?" Lena, confused and nervous, raised her hand. "Yes, that's me." The lawyer smiled, but not coldly. "Miss Carter, my name is Ms. Hamilton. I represent the estate of Mrs. Edna Lawson." Lena's heart skipped. "Estate? Wait, Edna Lawson? You mean?" "Yes," the lawyer said gently. "The elderly lady you've been helping every morning." The room fell silent. I didn't even know her last name," Lena stammered. "Is she okay?" The lawyer's expression softened. "I'm sorry. She passed away peacefully last week. But before she died, she left very specific instructions for us to find you." Lena's knees almost gave way. Tears welled up as the lawyer continued. "She told us about your kindness, the tea, the breakfasts, the talks. She said you treated her like a person, not a burden. And for that, she wanted to give something back." The lawyer opened the briefcase. Inside was a sealed envelope and a key. The letter inside read, "My dear Lena, you reminded me of what real kindness looks like. I once lost my daughter because I was too busy building my empire to show her I cared. When I met you, I saw her in you, the same strength, the same light. You gave me something money never could, dignity and love. I leave you the cafe building you work in, and a small home nearby. May you never struggle again for what you've already earned, peace and respect. With love, Edna Lawson." Lena's hands trembled as she read it. The cafe fell silent, and even her boss, who had often been harsh, stood speechless. The lawyer placed the property papers on the table. "Mrs. Lawson was one of the wealthiest businesswomen in the state. Everything you've ever done, she noticed. And she made sure you'd never have to fight alone again." Tears streamed down Lena's cheeks. "I didn't help her for money," she whispered. "I know," the lawyer said kindly. "That's why she chose you." The men in suits gave her a respectful nod and left as quietly as they came. Lena stood there, holding the letter to her heart, realizing the weight of what kindness can truly do. Months later, the cafe reopened under a new sign, Edna's Corner, a place where coffee and compassion were always free for those who needed them most. Lena ran it herself, hiring people who had once been turned away from other jobs, single mothers, students, elderly workers. And every morning, before the doors opened, Lena would pour a cup of honey-sweet tea and place it by the window, where the sunlight hit the chair just right. "For you, Mrs. Edna," she'd whisper with a smile. Because sometimes, the smallest kindness can change not just one life, but two. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us that kindness is never wasted. It always finds its way back. Red Heart.